Let's get bloody. It's time to talk about the last voyage of the Demeter. Get ready to sink your teeth into this new review.
Welcome, Misfits and Metalheads, to another episode of the Cutting Room Floor. We are from the band Cut Like This. I am Thorn Black.
I'm Roseblood.
And today we are going to be talking about the last voyage of the Demeter, currently streaming on Amazon Prime. But first, don't forget, like, subscribe, stream our music here on YouTube, Spotify, and Bandcamp. All right, now let's get into this movie. The Last Voyage of the Demeter, I believe, came out last year, 2023. Rose, why don't you tell them a little bit about this one?
Well, this one was one that I was really looking forward to. I'm a big fan of Dracula. I've read the book, of course. I've watched 1,000,000,001 movies and TV shows around this subject. So I was very excited to see this. And I was really excited when it finally came out on streaming because, you know, we try to give you the hottest and best and most fun things to check out that are streaming right now. So let's talk about it. Let's dig in.
Mm-hmm.
Our cast has a number of folks from Game of Thrones, including our salty sea captain, played by Liam Cunningham. His name is Captain Elliot. He brings along onto the voyage with him his grandson Toby. He will regret that decision.
Why are kids on a pirate ship?
Well, don't.
Why are kids on a pirate ship?
It's not a pirate ship. It's a regular ship.
Oh.
It's a regular ship.
Why are kids on a ship out in the sea?
This is a cargo ship. This is just a regular cargo ship.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we've also got our person of color on the voyage. His name is Corey Hawkins. Well, the actor's name is Corey Hawkins. The character he plays is Clemens. He's actually been in a couple of things. He's been on. He was in. Oh gosh, darn it! He plays Dr. Dre in Straight Outta Compton, actually, and he was also in Kong Skull Island and a bunch of other things as well. We got Eileen Franciosi plays a stowaway on the ship named Anna. She was from Game of Thrones, along with her peer Liam Cunningham, who we already talked about. We've also got David Dasmalkian as Washcheck. He's kind of like he's under the tutelage of Liam Cunningham's captain character.
That's kind of a fun word to say. Tutelage.
Yeah. He's like his second in command and stuff, and he's a very important character. You'll recognize him from recently just came out Late Night with the Devil. He was also in he was the guy with the dots in the Suicide Squad. The polka dot guy.
Yeah.
He's been in a bunch of things. You'll recognize him right away. He's got a very distinctive look. We've also got Stefan Kapicic as Olgarin. He's another member of the crew of the ship. He was in Deadpool. He was Colossus. He will be reprising his role as Colossus in the upcoming Deadpool and Wolverine. We've got a pretty good crew. Playing the role of Dracula is Javier Botet, who you will you won't recognize him.
Sure won't.
Because he is known for being a character actor that disappears into his roles because he's very tall and skinny, so he can be all those kind of ghoulish, creepy characters.
Yeah,
he was in The Conjuring, bunch of stuff like that. He's also in the Suspiria remake as well. He's in a bunch of films, but you won't recognize him because he's always some kind of creepy, awesome monster, and I wish I had his job.
You know, personally, if I was going to get into acting, I think that would be one of the best type of roles to get into is a person that plays all these fantastic characters and disappears, and you kind of almost don't even know what they look like because they're always in crazy makeup and prosthetics. That sounds like the best.
Apparently, he was doing 5 hours in prosthetics before going on to the screen. I do think it's a little unfortunate though that you don't really get to see as much of that in the film as I would want, because there's also some CG, and I found the CG on him a little distracting at times, and it took me a little bit out of it. But There's really, really well done CG in this film as well. The film is shot really, really nicely too. They actually made two versions of the ship. One was like a partial piece for when they're first loading stuff into the dock, and then they had a full size ship and in a tank, and then they scanned that. They shot a bunch of scenes on that with the actors live, and then for anything where they needed it to be, CG'd and stuff like that, like sailing on the ocean and things like that, they used a scan of it and how it moved and how it looked in the water in the tank in order to create the CGI for it, which is why it looks really good. I do think that all the scenes of the ship and everything in the harbor and all that other cool stuff, they did a lot of CG work in the harbor. You can't tell at all. It looks really cool, actually. It's really well done. They did a lot of there was a cool behind the scenes thing I was looking at, and they actually did a lot of work where they took a lot of footage and photos of old harbors from that time period to really try to nail that look. And I think they did a really good job. And like I said, it was a combination of, they did have an actual piece of ship there. It wasn't like, it's not entirely CGI. And in those particular scenes, it works flawlessly. It works really, really well. I found it most distracting and visible in Dracula himself at certain points. Not all the time, because he is a scary, horrible monster, and the prosthetics they do in the creation of that character is really, really cool. Again, I don't know that they necessarily needed to do as much CG on him as they did, but I wasn't there. So maybe they did need to do that.
I don't remember having the CG stand out in a negative way for me.
I'm a more nitpicky person for sure when it comes to that kind of stuff. But, it was still worth to watch. This was a very feral kind of version of Dracula. He's more animalistic, and that was all on purpose. They didn't want this. I am a fan of the suave, sophisticated Dracula, but it was cool to it's cool to see a different version of him as well.
I like both. I like when sometimes the vampires are kind of attractive, but I also like when they're just absolutely terrifying as well. I bounce between the two, but even when the vampire is attractive, I want them to be able to
morph into a horrible monster.
Yes,
which he does. He's a horrible monster.
Some things,
for most of this thing, he's kind of like a were man bat kind of thing, and he is really. It's a really cool, scary design for sure. And for those that are not, I don't know how you're not familiar with Dracula.
If you're not familiar with Dracula, we can't talk.
If you're not familiar with Dracula, why do you even like us? I don't even know why you're here.
If they don't know Dracula, they're not even on this channel right now.
But anyway,
I don't know.
If you're not familiar, this is actually based. This movie is based off of just one little chapter in the full novel of Dracula called The Captain's Log, and it was basically and the movie starts off with the ending, so because they're going off the premise that what this story is, what's gonna happen, and they show it to you right from the jump.
Yeah.
It's an empty ship, ghost ship pulling into the harbor. You know what I mean? So this is basically the captain's log of this voyage, right? And it's really, if you wanna see a different version with a really suave Dracula, you should check out the Netflix Dracula miniseries. I think it was 3 chapters or something like that. It was 3 episodes or 4 episodes.
3 or 4.
I feel like it was 3. But if you check out the first episode of that miniseries, you'll get to see this same story, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, but with a suave Dracula, which I personally am a big fan of, and I really like the actor that they had for that, and no distracting CG there. But anyway, going back to The Last Voyage of the Demeter, there was a lot of really cool setups and stuff like that. They show the different ways that people communicate on the ship, because they want to really show you how big the ship is. So using the little grandson talking to the doctor character, he's kind of showing like, oh, this is how, we do like a series of knocks, and this is how you can send, you can knock here and you'll hear it all the way across the ship. You know what I mean? And these are like little different codes that we have. You know what I mean? So, and that comes into play later on in the story, which I think is really cool. Points for that. There's a lot of jump scares in this movie, so if you're not a fan of movies with jump scares, you might not enjoy this one as much because it definitely relies on those jump scares. The cool thing that I liked about this Dracula is that he, even though he's kind of feral and more animalistic and hungry, right, in this depiction, he does talk sometimes, but he only talks to like mess with people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like he only, like, you're not gonna
As he would do.
You're not gonna be reasoning with him, or having any kind of conversations with him.
Yeah, you're in the middle of the ocean trapped with Dracula. He has nothing to say to you.
Oh, you guys are just a floating. You're a floating icebox for him, basically. That's what everybody is to him.
If you're a party of one at dinner, do you say bon appetit to yourself? Like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
You does
So yeah, it's an interesting way that they went about things. I will say that because this story is only taken from one small chapter, it does feel to me a little bit threadbare. So they try to add things into the story to keep you entertained and engaged and stuff like that. That are fine. You know what I mean? I'm not mad at any of the little additions or whatever that they put in there and stuff. That wasn't really my quibble with it. But I do think that it's a little difficult to make a full story, a full film off of just one chapter in a story, From some of the interviews and stuff that I read, what they were going for was they wanted to kind of have a vibe of almost like the movie Aliens, but on a ship. Like that was kind of like the vibe that we're going for, like the Aliens or the Thing. You know what I mean? Like where it's like that kind of claustrophobic kind of thing.
For me, they pulled it off. If that's what they were going for, they pulled it off better for me personally. Because the first Alien movie, I know I'm like one of the few, but I wasn't the biggest fan of it. It was a little slower than I wanted it to be. So I think that if that's what they were going for, that they pull it off a little bit better. Because I didn't feel like it dragged as much as I remember feeling like the first time I saw the original Alien movie.
There are high stakes in this. Because, like you said, from the very beginning, they were like, just in case you didn't know how this story ends, we're going to start from the end and then we're going to flash
work our way back.
You know what I mean?
So it's like, no surprise, but how do we get there? Oh, that's how they got there. Whew.
Yeah, and Corey Hawkins playing Clemens, he's a doctor that basically was, he had gone to this other country to become a doctor because nobody would hire him because of his skin color. And then he's trying to go back to London, basically. This is coming to London from the hometown of Dracula. And he becomes a very important character in the story. That is, and obviously that's different from the original story. So there's definitely a lot of not your mama's Dracula, you know what I mean, to this story, which is what they were going for. They were using that as their inspiration and their springboard, but they wanted to keep certain things authentic to it, but also, and the animalistic way that Dracula takes people down in this movie is definitely satisfying, and it's similar to what's in, it's like it's brutal. He's
Dracula is not messing around.
Yeah, Dracula's not messing around in this. Dracula is very much like it's not. There's no sympathy. There's no.
there was a moment or two where
Which I like.
there were a
I did
couple-
like that.
there was a moment too where a couple of characters made some very good decisions.
Yes.
And then things happen anyway, and I'm
Yeah.
like, wow.
See, I am a fan of that.
But that's what I want.
Yeah.
Let a character make
a good
decision and let it not matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, thank you. No dumb decisions, no tripping over nothing.
Yeah.
Please don't do that anymore.
There is one big dumb decision that I am not a fan of. That they make that I'm just like, well, why didn't you just do this? You know what I mean? But then there wouldn't be a story, So
Gotta have a story.
Yeah, you gotta have a story. So they did miss an opportunity, in my opinion, at a certain critical decision. But it's very fascinating to see the interactions between the different.
Yeah, this journey is crazy. Yeah. They're going from
people get stressed real soon. They start off so happy, and you're like
crossing the ocean to another, and then unfortunately find out something is on the ship, and that's the worst
place to be. It's the worst place to be.
Where do you
on
go?
On the ocean, on a ship.
Call for help, especially not in those days.
Especially not in those days.
Who are you calling for help?
You ain't shooting no flare. You're not shooting a flare. Who's gonna come?
You're not radioing the Coast Guard or anything nearby.
Anybody.
Like what do you do?
You're done.
Who helps you?
You're done.
That could be on a ship,
kid.
If that particular Dracula was on a modern day ship, I still almost don't know what you would do.
Yeah.
Because, just the things that hurt vampires aren't normal things.
Yeah.
So I'm like, even now, what would people have done finding out last minute? I'm not sure it would have mattered. And sure enough, didn't for these people.
Nope.
Oh.
Nope.
It's an enjoyable journey of just fear and mayhem.
Just know
and
that
stalking
any living thing that you see on that ship
it's fair game.
It's fair game, including
including everything. If
animals,
it's alive, it's fair game.
People, doesn't matter.
Because Dracula doesn't have blood. Because he's about to pull out his straw and have a sip.
I know. My man thirsty.
Imagine that.
Thirsty as hell.
If Dracula was bougie and dressed up and he walked around with a metal straw. Just so he could stab into people's necks. And then he took a sip, but he still had the pinky out.
My human juice box.
He had the pinky out when he did. He was like, ha!
See, that's too bougie for this Dracula.
No, but it's supposed to be bougie. That's what I'm saying. Imagine bougie Dracula. I've never seen bougie Dracula, but that's hilarious, and I want to see it now.
I mean, bougie Dracula is most Draculas. Most Draculas are bougie.
No, I mean like bougie. Like comically funny bougie. Like over the top.
You mean like Dracula dead and loving it? That Dracula is comically bougie.
He's comical, but not as bougie because it's more slapstick.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I see what you mean.
So it's not quite...
But I mean, he is mad bougie though. I mean, in general. In general, Dracula's a bougie.
Yeah, but would he use a straw? No.
I mean, no, he would just slit somebody's throat, catch it in a beautiful glass and stuff.
Exactly, because he's not bougie enough. That's all I'm saying.
He would have one of his beautiful brides slit somebody's throat for him, put it in a beautiful skull goblet, and then bring it over to him on a silver tray. See, that's the kind of bougie shit that Dracula would do.
That's not funny, and that's my point. That's my point. It's not. I'm talking about funny bougie, and that's not funny. That's all I meant. Anyway, let's keep it moving. Don't you think I'm right though? Wouldn't that be hilarious? That would be hilarious. Come on, guys. Come on.
It would be funny.
If you think that's funny,
if you put a straw in there, it would be funny.
Type it in the comments. Yes, I think that would be funny. That's all I'm saying. That's all. Anyway, let's keep it moving.
All right. So, pros. It's shot well. It's got good acting. The Dracula is really cool and really scary. Cons, like a lot of jump scares. For people that hate jump scares, don't watch this. I would say. The CGI for me sometimes was a bit much, and specifically on him, especially since they did cool prosthetics and stuff anyway. Like, they did it to enhance it. But I don't think it necessarily needed that enhancement. But who knows? I didn't see it in the camera, so I mean, I'm not the director. Oh, by the way, the director is Andre Overdahl. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not. But he actually did that movie Troll Hunter, which we loved. And he also did The Autopsy of Jane Doe, another banger. That was a really good... Yes, you did. We saw that together. That was the one with the two morticians, the father and son morticians, and they have the body in the basement. And then...
That's the one where she started talking, or he could talk to the dead?
No. Different one.
Oh.
Different one.
All right. Never mind. Doesn't matter.
Anyway,
right
doesn't matter. Both really great movies. So, points on a good director, and you can tell, that it's directed well in my opinion. It's just that I felt that it's gonna be lacking a little bit in the script because it's based off of one chapter. You know what I mean? It's hard to.
So we obviously know Rose's opinion. So why don't you just rate it, Rose?
All right. So my rating for The Last Voyage of Demeter would be a 3.5. It's still worth watching. There's a lot of cool stuff to see. There's high stakes, like, at any turn, something bad can and probably will happen. Good, cool kills and stuff. Awesome ship. The ship itself is really cool. Great actors. I just, I found the CG a little distracting at times. I found the, script a little bit slightly lacking in terms of, just story and stuff like that because it's based off of such a small sliver of Dracula mythology. But still very cool, very interesting. And you'll get to see a different type of Dracula, and it's shot really well. It's not like... You know what I mean? It's not like one of those cheap late nights, crap. There's so many crappy, Dracula story things. So you will get to, there's definitely some love and some care in the detail of a lot of things, and a lot of great scenes in it and stuff. And, and if you just want a super scary, just horrifying Dracula, he is really scarier in this one than I've seen him in a while, which was very refreshing. I really did enjoy that.
All right, so I am going to give this a 4 out of 5 chainsaws. Let me tell you why. I did not read whatever the story,
original Dracula
the original
novel
Dracula
by Bram
story.
Stoker.
So I'm not comparing it to anything. I'm just watching it as just a movie. I have nothing to go back to or whatever. Yeah, so I thought it was cool. I like the actors. I like the world, the ship, the ocean, the everything. I think they set a really good job. All of the VFX for like all the ocean, the sun, the ship, and everything.
Yeah.
Solid. It looks great. It's like I can kind of tell, but not in a bad way. You know what I mean? Like in the best way. It's like, oh, good job. Like I feel like you're out in the ocean right now. Like. Very well done. I love the communication that they have and telling how they communicate on the ship and how that kind of comes back later on.
That was cool.
I like that this Dracula isn't quite what I normally get. You normally get like two depictions, like either like super kind of like sexy kind of Dracula or super like just big, terrifying, but you see him for a while. Granted, you don't quite see this one as much as I would want to, but sometimes leaving a little something to mystery isn't the worst. It's not like you don't see them. It's just sometimes I want to see a bigger payoff. But for some reason this time, like the mind games that he's playing with these people, it just made all that okay. It's like even if I can't see him as well as I want to, he is such a prominent force that
he is a force for sure.
Undeniably there. That is like, oh my goodness. And then, like we were saying, he may not speak all that much throughout this movie. This isn't like a heavy on the Dracula lines movie. But when he does speak, it's just like, that was horrible. Why'd you have to say that to him? It's like, he's already terrified. You didn't have to say that. It's true. Like, man, this Dracula is just like, oh, you thought you were safe? Guess what? And then they're out at sea and it's pitch black, and then a couple of nights it storms, and then you're dealing with storms pitch black, a old school boat. They may as well have been pirates. That kind of old school boat. They're not pirates, but you know what I mean. Like back in that kind of setting and time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I found it very enjoyable. It didn't. You don't get Dracula like ASAP in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And normally I'm more of a get to it. Let me see something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. For some reason, like the costuming and just the actors and the setting and everything, I was just chilling until it happened. You know, like the build up for it was good for me, and I enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it a little bit more than Rose, and I could tell that even when we were watching it. But like it was very enjoyable for me. So you know, it's a solid 4. I would definitely check it out if you're looking for a cool Dracula story where he is not like super just prominent all up in the camera all the time. You know what I mean? Like it's a story.
It makes sense. It
And
makes
then
sense.
like Dracula, like if there was a part 2, then it would be like a lot more Dracula,
Yeah.
for sure. The way the story was, you know. But I enjoyed it. I had a good time watching it.
I will also say that the costuming and the set design
Mm-hmm.
for the ship was super well done, and the lighting and stuff. Like when they're depicting them on the ship, and as things are getting worse, you can like it's got a very ominous vibe, and which is very cool. Like it feels like we're on a ship. We're watching stuff that's on a real ship. This is really happening. You know what I mean? Which is applause to, you know, all the people working on, you know, the set and everything like that, and the designers and stuff like that. They did do some fantastic work.
All right. I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you for tuning in. Excuse me. Like, subscribe, give us some streams. Don't forget, we are currently working on new music, so you're definitely going to have some good stuff to listen to at some point
And if
this
you want
year.
to be the first one to hear that stuff, if you want to get some little sneaky advance glimpses, make sure to join our mailing list on our website at likethismusic.com. Okay? Don't miss out. You're going to want to see it. You're going to want to hear it. And you get a free MP3 too when you sign up as well.
So toss that movie in your queue, put us on your phone on Spotify, and have a great weekend. We are